Welcome to the complete battery comparison between the brand new Huawei Mate 30 Pro, iPhone 11 Pro Max, iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone 11, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus. First things first, let's get them to the same brightness level. So I've opened up a white page and used a luxometer to measure the amount of light emitted. I've put all phones on the same settings, and now we've done that, it's time to remove the chargers and start the timer on the far right. And the first application, iPhones have always been very efficient with the battery they do have, and so given that this is such a large capacity, by far the largest Apple has ever used on a phone, it'll be interesting. So we're about 40 minutes into the test, and we've finished with Instagram. We're now on an application called The History of Everything, standard education app, and you can see the Note is behind for now, but Samsung's One UI skin, which is a beautiful bit of software on top of Android, but in terms of battery management, it's not as aggressive as either of the four phones it's up against. That said, if we take a look at the battery percentages on top, the Note has already overtaken the iPhone 11 next to it. It's looking about on par with the iPhone 11 Pro so far, but the Pro Max and Huawei's Mate 30 Pro, they look like they're in a league of their own. Let's talk about resolution for a second, because we've got quite a weird set. Providing a phone lasts 5 hours in a test like this, that's good battery life, that's respectable battery that you're not going to need to worry about for a while, so we might still get there. I actually had to double take at this point when I realized that yes, we are approaching the 4-hour mark, and yes, the Mate 30 Pro and 11 Pro Max, those things are on well over 50%. I don't think I've seen battery life like this since the Pixel 3a XL. You may or may not have realized, but we're actually in a really interesting position when it comes to looking at the chipsets of each of these phones, because these are phones from Huawei, Apple, and Samsung, the only three smartphone companies that actually have their own smartphone chipsets. And so, in a way, this actually further amps up the stakes of this battle. You've got Huawei, Apple, and Samsung's top-tier flagship phones using their latest and greatest silicon, and it's all being pitched together in this battery comparison. After about an hour on YouTube Music, the iPhone 11 lasted more than 5 hours, so I'm happy. The next closest phone is the Note 10 Plus with 29%. Anyways, time for Afterpulse, which is a super underrated first-person shooter game, and the graphics on here are some of the best you can see on a phone, full stop. Now, I feel like one question I haven't answered properly yet: the US ban on Huawei. You've probably heard about it. You've probably heard of how Huawei is unable to do business with Google, and that means there's no Google apps on this phone. Yes and no. From all the confident that this will blow over and that the situation will eventually sort itself out. And the second thing, as you can probably tell, you can sideload them. It took me about 5 minutes. I'll leave a link in the description if you're curious, but you just download. From this point, we've pretty much seen what we need to see, so I'm just going to fully fast forward this test and let's get to the final results. There was a bit of Google Chrome, a bit of YouTube, and one final game, and I did somehow manage to kill all these phones. Although, let me tell you, this was the longest time I've ever spent filming a battery comparison. Anyways, in 5th place, the iPhone 11 with 5 hours and 2 minutes. This is what I'd call good battery life. Next up was the Galaxy Note 10 Plus, way ahead at 6 hours and 31, already in the great category. The iPhone 11 Pro was even better than this, but what makes that more surprising is that this is such a compact device. But then, the Mate 30 Pro got 8 hours and 13 minutes. That's staggering. That's the second best phone I've ever tried. But then, the iPhone 11 Pro Max takes the full title. This is the best battery I've ever tried on a phone, and it completely came out of nowhere. I always did wonder what would happen to iPhone's battery life if Apple actually put a large